Welcome back to the TLW podcast. Jonathan Pixley with Sean Owens. Sean, welcome back.
Hey, brother. Glad to be here, man.
Awesome. Today we're going to be talking about the topic of relationships, which will actually be split into two different podcasts. We're going to launch our online course here soon. So, relationships in the online course will also be split into two different sessions, as you'll see. But today's angle that we will take is the one that Sean did for the online course. So I'm going to let Sean kind of introduce today's topic. We said relationships, but specifically the direction that we're headed.
Yeah, we felt passionate that, we can't include relationships both with teammates, with other men and women all in one. That's just way too much topics.
It is. So we're going to
Way too
split it
much.
into two, and we're going to cover the male to male angle.
We're male to male, inner circle, things of that nature we're going to discuss on this one. And then uh, that left my partner, Coach Pixley, over here high and dry with the more challenging of the two, and that is
We'll get to that.
relationships with women. So, yeah, relationships are something that, man, we could talk for about a long, long time, but these people don't have time to listen to me talk forever. So, you know, uh, I'm always reminded of the Jim Rohn quote that says, "Is you're the average of the five individuals that you spend time with the most." And I like to say that as much as I love that quote, I like to further I nail it into the five people that you choose to spend time with the
Right.
most. Uh, you look at your life, you look at the people that you spend your time with. Have you noticed patterns that you've gotten into because maybe the people that you were with led you directions that you weren't planning to go? You look at patterns that you've noticed based on the people that you've been around as you've
For
grown
sure.
involved.
I think for me, it's less about being dragged in certain directions as it has been. Um, I'll call it what I did as a coach, playing down to the level of
Mm,
competition,
yeah.
right? I used to get on my teams all the time because it's real easy if you step out in an athletic contest and you know that you're better than the team that you're going to play,
Mm,
to kind of play down to their level because you know at some point in time you can turn it on and you can figure out a way to win the game as opposed to focusing on I'm here to get better,
yeah.
right? Yeah, we're going to win this game, but I'm here to get better. That's really the main reason why I'm doing this. And so there have been times in my life, for sure, where I have not necessarily surrounded myself with people who have pushed me
Yeah.
in that regard. Um, I believe 100% that there is great value in being the dumbest person in the room,
That
right? What
that'll
are your thoughts on
preach,
that?
dude. Without a doubt, I look at I got two thoughts for you on that. First off, what I found in my life is that, oftentimes I might get into certain relationships, certain friendships, which I then may not recognize initially as being, okay, this could be something which might not drag me the right direction. It's something which kind of happens subtly, and
Mm,
because typically if we see big red flags and we smart enough to avoid
right.
big red flags. But I think it's one of those things that we sometimes we get into something, and it's not until down the road where we've let certain things slide. We've maybe gone off course a little bit, and it's only that 1 or 2 degree off course, which doesn't make a difference now, but it magnifies significantly more in the future.
And it builds, right? And it
Yeah,
builds on each other. And I think that if you don't have people in your life
hmm,
who are willing to call you out
yeah,
when you need to be called out, right? Um, and being called out doesn't have to be a super negative approach, right? It doesn't have nobody's yelling at you
no,
or
it's
cursing at you or anything like that. It's just a matter of, hey man, I don't like the direction you're headed right now. I don't think you're thinking clearly about this.
And I mean, there's no greater love than that because at the end of the day, we're not called to just be a bunch of yes men for each other. Our goal, if we truly love someone, if we truly care about somebody, then it's not anything wrong with offering a little course adjustment, a little gentle correction, a little advice on, hey, maybe that's not the direction you should be going. Maybe it needs to be a reevaluation about how you're spending your time and who you're spending your time with.
I have a question for you. Do you feel like, and I don't want to be too old head and old school with this, but I feel like as I get older, um, and maybe it's just the grumpy old man in me, but I feel like as I get older, I notice that the generations that are here, or the generation that's here now, and that will come in the future, they avoid controversy at
Yes.
all costs. They avoid adversity at all costs.
Hmm.
Um, Anything to not have to be confrontational. Now, I know people, and you know people like this as well, that are going, they're searching for controversy. They're searching
Yeah.
for adversity. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about an adverse situation presents itself. Okay, let's deal with it right now. Let's
Hmm.
deal with it head on. Um, and try to turn a negative into a positive potentially. Um, do you feel that way,
Yeah,
or am I off
without a
base?
doubt. I think that it's becoming more and more rare that people are being authentic. And I think that being okay with confrontation comes down to authenticity. Because if you're being authentic, you're staying true to principles, you're staying true to yourself and what you believe. And part of that means that, like I said, if you love someone, if you care about somebody, and you see a need to correct course, correct change, then you do so, like I said, in a specific manner. It doesn't have to be the negative manner like we talked about. But as we continue to go through and society continues to evolve, it really feels like we're getting to where we're evolving to where everybody is just no confrontation, all scared of it. And it I think there's a lot of different theories, which we won't go into today, about why it is the case, but it's something that I know you're strong and passionate about, and I feel very strong and passionate about too, because look, heads up, I'm one of those people that I've had a hard time with confrontation in the past, but what I've had to learn and accept that is standing up for what I believe in, standing up for what's right, not being hesitant uh, to get involved with confrontation. It's not that I'm being a bad person. If anything, I'm being more true to myself. Like I said earlier, I'm being authentic by accepting what needs to be said and knowing that I'm being a better person by saying it.
So you just said a version of this word several times, um, and I believe that the biggest um, controversy creator or the most controversial topic
Mm.
will always be the truth,
Yeah.
right? Um, as a coach, I remember I'd have a parent meeting at the beginning of every year, and in that parent meeting, I would say, um, "Look, you guys can come to every practice if you want to. You can come watch everything. You just can't open your mouths while we're practicing. Um, and then if you ever need to have a meeting with me, we just need to set it up, right? But when we have that meeting, your son is going to be sitting next to you, and I am going to tell you the truth, and he is going to tell you the truth as well. So now you just have to decide if you really want to have that meeting when you have it. Because if you are one to dodge the truth because you've got your parent blinders on,
Mhm.
because and look, I'm guilty as charged. I have the same thing with my two girls in their
Yep.
volleyball, and they're great volleyball players, but still, I would have my parent, and my wife was the one coaching them, and I would question things. That makes a lot of sense, right?
Good
Um,
luck at dinner.
well, it did not go well the couple times I did that, and it shouldn't have either. Um, but the point is, like, if you're not going to be willing to accept what's reality
Yeah.
and what the truth is, then there's really no use in having the conversation. But if you listen to it, then we could get somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, thoughts?
You just reality is a word that you just said, and this is going to speak to something that a topic you and I talked about significantly in some of the coaching that we've done in the past, and it plays into how we have interactions with other individuals and reality, and what Sean Owen sees as reality, and what Jonathan Pixley sees as reality, looking at the same exact specific circumstance, environment, etc. I see this, you see it, and while we both have our own specific perceptions of it, my perception is still going to be shaded a little bit different than your perception.
Which means yours is wrong and mine's right.
Well, that's
Yeah. Okay.
to be
So anyhow,
determined.
okay, we got there.
Anyways,
Yeah.
but because we're dealing with human beings, which are born into sin, we're all flawed, and we're all products of our environments. The way we all look at things are all shaded by the cumulative sum of the experiences that we've had, which means that our perceptions of reality are all shaped by that, which means that sadly we don't all look at things the exact same.
But
And
isn't that a great thing?
it's a great thing, but it makes it a challenge in terms of dealing with humans. I think it's something that when you get into the workplace, when you work with athletes, when you work with teammates, it 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 heightens the level of challenge associated with management, because you're dealing with trying to communicate something to people who are looking at things, and you're presenting what you think is black and white. But what you don't realize is everybody else is operating in these areas of gray, and your goal is to try and keep things as objective as possible while you're dealing with everybody else who are seeing things outside of what you would consider objectives. Does that make sense?
It does. Here's my thought, though. Okay, is yes, if we had a bunch of clones, it would be easier to get them to head all in the right
Right.
direction.
Right.
Okay, but I believe fully that because we know we have different personalities on a team, in a business, whatever it is, right? When we are leading a group, we know that everybody's going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Even if some of them look the exact same and sound the same in the way they talk, okay, they're going to view things differently. I 100% believe that if you're able to create buy-in amongst all these different
Yep.
people with these different viewpoints, then that, in my opinion, kills two birds with one stone. Number one, it creates more buy-in from each of them because they see, oh, this person's not like me, but they're willing to row the boat
Mm-hmm.
in the same direction.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to row my boat in the direction they're going too, right? They're willing to give this up for me. I'm willing to give this up for them. Okay. And the second thing is, it causes people, if you're going to head in the same direction, it causes you to have to learn to accept people for who they are.
Oh, Bruce. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you accept all of the wrong things that people do. Like if they're intentionally doing things that are wrong or illegal, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about their mannerisms or their habits or whatever it is. As long as and we, Jace is behind the scenes right now, but he's a prime example of this. Okay, his personality was very different than his twin brothers,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they both played on the same team, won the same number of state championships, started all these games. Their games were totally different. Their personalities were totally different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because they were different, it worked.
It's I think it's really cool to see how a team benefits when you have the leader of that team who is able to see and accept the fact that we're all looking at things with our own different reality, and can communicate in a way that allows everybody to have that buy-in, and seeing how the whole team gets a magnificent boost from that. The fact, like you said, that everybody comes from a different point of view. Everybody wins so much more whenever you have a leader who can sit there and coordinate that and accept these human beings for who they are, and get them all moving in the right direction. Because you and I both know getting a bunch of people to move in the same direction, dude, uphill battle sometimes.
It is. And quick side note here, there is a prime example of something different on our table right now. And that is, thank you again, Dwayne Johnson, for creating the most different energy drink known to man.
Without a doubt.
Zoa.
Cheers, my brother.
Zoa sip.
Cheers. Yes, sir.
I tell you, I love grape. Strawberry watermelon might be my favorite flavor.
I got one little tidbit for the people out there. You'll notice how my can has this lovely little dent in it right here.
Yeah. Explain that.
All right. So this will take 2 seconds. First podcast we have the cans out. Pixley, we're talking about how we're all type A and we have some issues with things being out of order. We had issues with asymmetry, etc. I had this dent in the can, and Coach Pixley sees that and he's like, well, what's wrong with you? You got a dent in your can. I did quickly remind him that since age 18, every single can I've drank from has that dent in it. And natural reaction, I can't explain why it happens. Probably one of the reasons why I need a therapist. But every single can you'll ever see on this side of the table will have that dent right there.
And everyone you see on this
Be
side,
pure, fresh, and clean.
will not. But that makes it whole for you.
That makes it whole.
Right?
That's whole. Yeah, you bet.
We're going to stop talking about this because people are going to stop listening, because that might be misconstrued or construed correctly as weird. Anyhow, okay, so back to it. I'd like to shift a little bit here. Actually, before we shift, when it comes to relationships um, amongst teammates, coworkers, um, and really, I'm talking about males
Hmm.
and their relationships with other males.
Hmm.
Okay, friendships. Even if and we've all been on teams, for example, where we didn't get along with everybody, but we were able to make it work in the team setting. Um, how important do you think it is for a team, for an office, for any group that's going to spend a lot of time together, for them to actually be friends?
Hmm.
Is it necessary?
No,
Okay,
no.
explain.
I don't think that you have to be friends in the workplace and out of the workplace. There's nothing wrong with keeping separate parts of life separate. I think there is a sense of decorum that's necessary, some cordiality. I think that just maintaining decency is and respect is more respect is more important than friendship. I'll say it that way. That is necessary, but I think that there's a slippery slope when we're in the workplace or if we're working towards some significant goal as a team that we can let friendship override the importance of what the ultimate goal
That's
is.
right.
What do you think about that?
That's right. And it's why a lot of times it's hard for family members to do business together,
Mm,
for
yeah,
example, right? Um, and I think, you know, when you look at you don't want to hurt that person's feelings, right? Because you've known them for a long time.
hmm,
Well, that doesn't change what's right.
that's correct.
And so because it doesn't change what's right, you're responsible. And you're responsible to that individual
Hmm.
to do what's right
Isn't
as
that come back to
opposed
authenticity right there?
100%.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing I want to touch on with this real quick, and it's biblical, right? If you have a problem with your brother, go to
Hmm.
your brother, right? Um, that's another thing, and we talked about it earlier. In recent generations struggle with adversity, right? They struggle with controversy. I am such a firm believer in not letting things just lie.
Hmm.
If you know that there's an issue, even if you wonder, look, I heard this. I heard that this was said about me by this individual, and where there's enough smoke, typically there's fire.
Hmm.
Um, but as opposed to just automatically, and I am guilty of handling it the wrong way many times. Trust me, okay. But as opposed to just assuming that what you heard is exactly what happened, okay. I think it is so very important that we reach out to that individual and
That's
go,
vital. Yeah.
okay, here's what I heard. I'm not going to assume anything. I would love to hear your side of it. Um, and then go from there. And then you can make your determination,
Yeah.
right? We can read people well enough
Yeah.
to know, yeah, they're not telling me the
No,
truth.
assumptions are not going to help anybody out. Not going to help anybody at all. I think that what happens too. I mean, here's what I've been guilty of. Whenever I've avoided um, a circumstance like you've described, is when I assume something, I'm automatically going to assume the worst.
Yeah.
And then when I assume the worst, it's really easy to create scenarios in your mind which eventually are just completely false. They're completely untrue, and then you start to call into question character, things which could have been avoided, wasted emotional energy, wasted intent, time that did not need to be spent in a way when you could have just had a quick 5-second conversation, handled things, and moved on from there versus going down a negative feedback loop, which brings you absolutely nowhere.
Touching a little bit more on what we're talking about being direct, right? And again, if you got an issue with an individual, go find out what the issue is. And I think there's something I left out whenever I talked about let's reach out to an individual. When you go into them, when you
Mhm.
go in to meet with them, maybe it's a phone call, whatever it is. Okay, you have to keep an open mind.
Open mind, I think emotional intelligence comes into play so much right here because let's say I'm approaching you. I come to you because I thought I heard you had said something. If I come to you with a finger pointed, I come to you
That's going to be a problem.
that's
I'm just
Y'all don't have to worry about that ever
you don't have
happening.
look. You see this thing? That's definitely a problem. Okay.
But whenever you're approaching these conversations, approaching it from a standpoint of non-judgment, just clarification, not coming in with an offensive tone,
Yeah.
not coming in with a an aggressive positioning. I think posture says so much, and there's so much about the communication that is happening that's not the verbal, it's the nonverbal cues that can dictate how that conversation goes. What you think about that?
I think it's great, and I think it makes you more calculated too
Yeah,
in your approach, right? Which by calculated, I do not mean manipulative.
right.
I just mean I know what I'm trying to get accomplished here.
Hmm.
Okay, here's how my approach needs to be,
Yeah,
and not thinking too many. Okay, well, if he says this, then I'm going to say this. Not getting that deep into it. But I think the other thing that we leave out too is when when we hear that somebody says something about us or they feel this way about us or whatever, um, I think we give ourselves too much credit for being important. And by that, I mean, other people aren't thinking about us as much as we
we're
might.
thinking about ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
you're
not
right.
just that. Like, as much as we think they're thinking about
Hmm.
us, you know why? Because they have their own mess that they're dealing with.
Hmm.
We it's not we, contrary to our popular belief, are not consuming their thoughts like we think that we
We're
should
not that
for some
important.
reason,
Yeah. No,
right?
you're right. You're right 100%.
And so I really look, I've run into issues with it myself where it's like, wow, this person really thinks this about me, this, that, the other. And then you have the conversation and you're like, wow, I couldn't have been more wrong about that.
Yep. Yep.
Have you ever encountered anything like that?
More often than I care to admit. Yeah, it's because again, we're coming back to our fallen nature. We're born into sin, and we're we're selfish. Let's be honest. I mean, how does a baby get attention? Crying like crazy. Selfish. All they want is to eat and get changed and go to sleep. Selfish, selfish, selfish. And really, at the end of the day, we're just trying to evolve from that. But that's who we are at the core. And because that's who we are at the core, that we tend to think so much revolves around us. Newsflash, it doesn't.
It doesn't, never will.
It doesn't.
Um, so we'll close with that. And like we said at the beginning of the pod, our next podcast that we come out with, we'll be dealing with relationships with females from men, and how we navigate that very, very slippery slope that we tend to screw up more often than not, for sure. But thank you guys for joining us and signing off from the TLW podcast. Jonathan Pixley, Sean Owens. Go get it.